Roebling Village, a living historical community. The village of Roebling is one of the best examples of a preserved planned factory town from the early 20th century. The town exists as a testament to living history, while the steel and wire mill that dominated the area is long gone. This Dallin aerial photo of Roebling from 1926 shows the extent of the facility. It consisted of a steel mill and a wire mill and a planned community of 750 homes. This Google Earth photo from 2015 shows the current community. To the right is the former location of the steel and wire mill works, 200 acres which is now vacant. To the left is the actual community. The upper left-hand corner is the Delaware River, and you can still see that the baseball diamond exists from more than 100 years ago. In April 2015, I was one member of a tour group that spent about 2.5 hours at the museum and in the planned community, which is now part of Florence Township. We were able to see firsthand how life would have unfolded 50 or 100 years ago in Roebling Village. The EPA declared the mill's 240 acres a Superfund site in the 1980s and begun clearing 70 years worth of industrial waste, along with the associated buildings. The Historical American Engineering Record photo of 1997 captured many of these images of the derelict factory site, along with the village that survived. As part of the effort, the EPA spent nearly $6 million to restore the building's main gatehouse into a museum and an educational center. Volunteers raised an additional $400,000 to buy office equipment, create a gift shop, and hire an executive director. Here is one of the local residents of Roebling who grew up working in the mill town. He tells us about the history of the museum and the town before I start our tour in this Living History Museum of Roebling, New Jersey. The museum contains many visual elements which helps people understand the history of the town, including the history of the wire works, the steel mill, and the planned village. This overhead image from 1926 shows the production facility in action. Among these visual elements was an area where it actually had wire and wire cord and different types of products made by the Roebling family right in the middle of the museum. You had to walk by this to go to either sides of the museum, and it gave you a sense of how important the products were and what they actually looked like. And in some cases you could actually pick up the products and touch them. Another section had a detailed history of the Roebling family. The father, John Roebling, is best known for his design of the Brooklyn Bridge. Unfortunately, he died from tetanus from a foot injury he received while planning the bridge. His three sons, Charles, Ferdinand, and Washington Roebling, carried on the business and made it into the great success it was into the 1950s. This innovative display is a highlight of the museum. It is a large piece of glass backlit with a photo of the Brooklyn Bridge. Again, this is something that you need to walk by when you're in the museum to see, and you can appreciate the scope and the extent of the Roebling projects. This mural in the center of town is painted outside of the former company store, which was on the town's circle. It shows the history of the Roebling family, some of their most famous bridges including the Golden Gate Bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge, and gives you another sense of how historic the Roebling family was. In many ways, the current community of Roebling is a living museum. Much of the original architecture remains from the planned community, which was started in 1905 and mostly designed by Charles Roebling. Row homes, detached homes, and single homes still exist, and they were assigned to people based upon their work class at the factory. The other major buildings in town exist currently but have different functions. For example, the former auditorium is now a firehouse, but it is also in the process of being converted back to more of a public use facility. These row homes show different architectural styles in the current village of Roebling. Some are unchanged since 1905, while others have had modern porches put on them. This is a porch on another current row home. Notice the original style door and some of the original trim, but also you can tell that it has a different front on the house. Another interesting feature of the Roebling Village were the alleyways that ran between houses. This allowed for trash removal and for the delivery of other products. Some of these homes have their original back porches with the high arches, which are a really unique feature of late Victorian architecture. This is a wider view of the former company store which sat on the town's circle. You can see there is one or two businesses in there. There's an Italian restaurant and there's a mini market type of business, but other parts of the building remain vacant. The statue of Charles Roebling sits in the town circle. Before the statue was there was a standpipe for an artisan well used by the residents. The former town auditorium was modified in the 1960s and 1970s to add a fire station on the left-hand side of the building. The building is currently being restored to its original use, where it can be used as a community center as well as for other public events. The town's former bank remains vacant on the current town circle. Before the bank was there, a large house was moved by the residents up the street. At the end of the tour, I was impressed by several factors. The first factor was Roebling is a great example of an early 20th century planned factory town. There is also a strong local commitment to historic preservation in the museum. There is extensive documentation on the history of the mill in the village, and there's also a deeply shared understanding of the community's roots. Several people we met grew up in the town as well as their parents and their grandparents, and everyone has a story about Roebling that makes it special.